Can you accept yourself as you are? Can you surrender to the wisdom of your body? Universal love, love of the body or not, the pressure to change and to organize. These are all pressures, qualities, and questions that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for March 18th to 24th, 2026 bring. Hello, and welcome to the Human Design Weather or Not podcast with me, Margo Fraser. I'm recording this on St. Patrick's Day, so I've got my green on here. Happy belated St. Patrick's Day by the time that you see this. We also have the Equinox coming up, and anytime we have a solstice or equinox within the cycle, we have the Sun Earth activating two of the four love gates in the G center. That's the center associated with love, identity, and direction in life. So happy early equinox. We still have emotionality through the long-term transit activating the channel of community. However, we're finally out of the earth emotional activations and we've moved into the G center this cycle. So that'll bring a little relief emotionally there. All right, well, let's dive in. This cycle starts on March 18th at 2:32 p.m., going until the 24th at 6:27 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Universal time coordinates, it's coming in March 18th at 8:32 p.m., going until the 24th at 12:27 p.m. So remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun-Earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. The Sun has moved into Gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence and universal love. Its keynote says, the perfection of action through an uncontrived and spontaneous nature. It's rooted in selflessness and is about motiveless action. Be here now and love all things equally. As such, it can seem like a cool kind of love to us humans because loving a person is no greater than loving a tree or loving a rock. But mystically, it's a love that's transcendent of this over that. It's a place where there can be compassion for all. In its polarity, it can also be a place of publicizing one's selflessness when innocence is lost, and therefore there is a motive. And we really are highly conditioned that there must be a motive and a motivation for every action. Your spirit is always tested by the world around you. The question is, can you stay centered in yourself? This is a trait that's about selflessness. But when we're insecure about this, it can have a kind of motivating, who am I? Why am I here? In the detriment, there's a drive to identify as something and with something. It's a great time to be looking at the groups you may be involved with and contemplate whether you're gaining a sense of identity through them, or can you just relax and be yourself. Gate 25 points to the ego center, the heart center, that motor that brings that willpower. It's electromagnetic. Gate 51, the trait of shock, is a very powerful ego gate. Gate 51 is the heart of the warrior and says, I have the power. Meanwhile, Gate 25, this trait that is being activated here is the spirit of the warrior and says simply, power exists. It's part of the individual circuitry, which is about bringing mutation, bringing something new through in a pulse of knowing that can be empowering. With this Gate 25 frequency, we're likely going to meet the shocks of Gate 51. And can you adapt to these shocks or will you withdraw? It's part of the channel of initiation, which can be deeply competitive with others, but in its highest form is really being competitive with yourself, stretching yourself into the unknown. And Gate 25 can support you in both maintaining your innocence, the wonder and awe that the power is there, and also delving into root motives of your own actions. In this way, this trait can bring you more deeply into yourself. It's part of the centering circuit that's about being centered in yourself, which means accepting yourself and maintaining innocence, maintaining your unique selfness, no matter what the circumstances are around you. We all go through trials in this life, and this frequency is about maintaining innocence, not to be confused with naivete through those trials. In that way, they can become initiations that, again, move you more deeply into yourself and out of the conditioning of society. The challenges that come in for you can stretch you and show you your capabilities. This is the spirit of yourself, the spirit of the warrior, not getting caught up in the ego, maintaining innocence even in a competitive atmosphere. In its polarity, this frequency could bring a lack of compassion for other beings, and rather than becoming more centered in one's unique individuality, simply moving from being not self-conditioned by one person or group to another. The Earth has moved into Gate 46, the trait of the determination of the self, also called pushing upward, and love of the body vessel. Gate 46 is part of the experiential way, going through cycles of experiences to reflect and learn. Its keynote says good fortune that may be perceived as the result of serendipity, but derives from effort and dedication. Even though the experiential circuitry is ultimately reflecting on experiences to gain that wisdom and share it so that we don't have to repeat mistakes and can evolve, this particular trait is quite existential. Be here now in your body, in your life, in your experience of life, without expectations. Your life is lived through your body, and it has a built-in ability to guide you to be in the right place at the right time. But it requires surrender of the mind to where it thinks you should be. There's an opportunity with this trait present to love your body vessel in a greater way, to allow it to guide you through your strategy and authority, and to surrender to that, to come into a deeper trust of the wisdom of your body. When you let your body guide you and you're in your body, you will find yourself in the right place at the right time. And that is serendipity. The body also requires your determined caring, your love of the vessel, feeding it, nurturing it. This frequency can help you with doing that. At the same time, the polarity can be there as well. Hate of the body, and then being in the wrong place at the wrong time. You may hear people or yourself, if you're in that place, getting down on their body and complaining about unmet expectations or things never lining up in a serendipitous way. Whatever experience you're in, these frequencies are really being in it for the sake of the experience itself. Then the body can do its thing and be productive. And when the experience ends, it can be effective in that reflection. When we look at these two traits together, they can support you in being your unique self and accepting yourself as you are, bringing that innocence to be in the experience for whatever it brings. You might get to the root of why you're not accepting yourself. Or it could bring simply being competitive out of ego motivations in a way that punishes the body. All right, let's look at our channels now. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So has a big impact that way. We've got our long-term channel that's been here since December 22nd, and it's going to be with us until May 13th, with the south and north nodes of the moon creating that channel of community, a design of a part seeking a whole. The nodes represent our direction, our environment, and what we see in the world, our perspective. The north node sitting in gate 37, the trait of friendship and family, and the south node's in gate 40, the trait of deliverance and aloneness in the ego center. So this is connecting the ego center to the emotional center. Overall, bringing emotionality and that willfulness. It's tribal, and the tribe always has that underlying theme of mutual support. This channel of community is also the channel of the marriage contract. So all about bargains and trade and do we have enough resources or not? As we come together, there are these themes as well of loyalty and betrayal. That's very strong here. Possessiveness, for better or worse, generosity, and jealousy. So all of those things can be playing out. If you have to negotiate a contract or renegotiate something, this frequency can be very helpful for that. But if you're feeling that things are unfair and you're being taken advantage of, that's going to be amplified. At the same time, there is the opportunity with this to do that renegotiation to balance the scales there. It is important, though, that you know what is fair to you. What is it that you really need? Sometimes that's difficult for us to articulate. As the design of a part seeking a whole, it's also going to bring that looking for that sense of belonging. Where do I belong in my family, in my community? But most important, it can support you in having that sense that, yeah, I belong in the totality. You being your unique self gives you your place in the totality. All right, we've got a short-term channel that came in just before this cycle started on March 18th at 9:06 a.m. It's going until March 22nd at 10:10 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, it's going to be here until March 23rd at 4:10 a.m. We have Venus in gate 51, the trait of shock in the ego center, the heart center. Again, it's that motor that brings that willpower. It's connecting with gate 25, the spirit of the self, of innocence, of universal love that we just talked about. That's our sun's position. And we also have and have had for quite some time now Neptune sitting in gate 25 as well. Together, they create the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. This is that individual channel that can bring a pulse of knowing of what leap into the unknown to take to stretch yourself, initiating you into a new sense of self, coming more deeply into yourself and being centered in that. This can be very empowering and support you in accepting yourself as you are. It can also support adapting to any shocks that you go through. When we jump into that void or leap into that void of the unknown, yeah, there can be some shocks along the way. With this, there can be the breaking out of the homogenization of the tribe and into oneself in a greater way. And with this channel, it can also bring individuality into the tribe. All of the other gates in the ego center are tribal, other than gate 51, part of this channel. It's also part of the centering circuitry. So again, that being centered in yourself. Now, as a design of needing to be first, which is about initiating, it can also have this competitiveness in the not self aspect. So being competitive with others out of that ego. So in the not self world, that's often how we see this play out. All right. We have one other channel that's being created in this cycle, first due to a moon transit, and then Venus coming in and activating this channel. So first of all, March 20th at 9:10 a.m., going until 6:33 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's March 20th at 3:10 p.m., going until the 21st at 12:33 a.m. We have the moon moving into gate 42, the trait of completion and growth in the sacral center. That's connecting with Jupiter's position in gate 53, the trait of beginnings in the root center. Together, they create the abstract experiential channel of maturation, a design of balanced development. Then we're going to have a break for about 1.5 days, and then Venus will move into gate 42 on March 22nd at 10:10 p.m., and it's going to stay there until the 27th. So into our next cycle until 11:27 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, it's going to come in on March 23rd at 4:10 a.m., going until the 27th at 5:27 p.m. Now, this is what we call a format channel. It's about going through cycles of beginnings, middles, and ends, and it has an impact on every other gate in the chart. It brings this cyclical nature and is ultimately, like all the experiential circuitry, about gaining wisdom and maturing and growing through that. So it brings the opportunity to start something new or take that next step, or bring something to completion. Of course, if you're not following your strategy and authority, you could end up doing any of those things at the wrong time. All right, that brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the nodes of the moon and the outer planets. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. So your not self mind could start to think that they're a part of you, even when it's not something you have in your own design. And then when that transit moves on, that can be quite confusing to the mind. We have one significant change this cycle as Uranus is finally going to change lines. We also had Saturn move just at the end of last cycle into gate 17 in the Ajna Center, and I was leaving it until this cycle to really talk about that. But we'll go through everything as usual, and then I'll pull it together. All right, starting with the nodes in the transit field, they're bringing that homogenized perspective and direction that we'll see play out in the world. They're sitting in that channel community. The 3740, the design of a part seeking a whole. So we've already talked about what that brings generally. Specifically, they're in line 4, having a very long run in this particular line, and then we'll actually see it move more quickly through the other lines when it finally gets there. For gate 37, the trait of friendship, line 4 is called leadership by example. In the exaltation, it says those that exhibit exemplary behavior and the highest principles will be seen as the leaders over those who would be the traditional patriarchal leaders. In the detriment, only the traditional, typically patriarchal leaders are accepted, even if they're not good role models. Gate 40 brings an ego that will organize, work to balance, rest. So that's something on a personal level that could be very supportive. At the collective level, you're more likely to see the detriment play out where people are getting their ego stroked. So they're spreading themselves too thin, overworking, taking on that workaholic personality, and in the end, are less productive. Moving to the outer planets now, Jupiter sitting in gate 53, the trait of beginnings and development in the root center with its pressure to start a new experience. Now, this is one where I'm not really sure if the exaltation is present in the world. Neptune activates the exaltation, but it hasn't activated this trait since 1909. So that's 117 years. So only if there's someone that is still alive that's carrying this trait that was born around that 1909 period is this still present. And that's the pressure to begin something new, not from scratch, but based on the foundation of the old. In the detriment, there's a holding back from starting something new due to the criticism that was experienced in the past. So it's the insecurity of the first line that really dominates there. Now, at the end of the last cycle, as I mentioned, Saturn moved into gate 17, the logical trait of opinions in the Ajna Center, that seat of the mind. And gate 17 collects patterns to determine which is best. Now, its keynote says the ancient laws that those who wish to rule must know how to serve. This is collective, so it's ultimately in service of humanity. There's the possibility with this trait for organizing formula, patterns, methods, theories, organizing people. So if you have something that you need to organize, this could really be supportive for you this cycle. It's the gate of the right eye that sees in the now and takes in the patterns that are there. It's sitting in line one called openness. In the exaltation, it says the energy to sustain a broad spectrum of stimuli, the possibility of having many opinions. The detriment says a tendency to limit openness to aesthetically pleasing stimuli, the possibility to limit opinions to what is pleasing. So this cycle, you're likely to hear a lot of opinions generally in the exaltation and selectively only in the things that people are interested in the detriment. That would be like an art critic who has no opinions about anything outside of art. You may find that you have a lot of opinions under this pressure. Just a reminder that just because someone has an opinion, a theory, and even if they can back it up with facts, it still doesn't mean that it's true, that it's correct. It has to go through the experimental process and be tested to prove that it's valid. So, just something to watch out for there. Logic also brings the pressure to think about the future, to organize, and to plan ahead. We have Uranus sitting in gate 8, the individual trait of contribution and holding together. It's the voice of, I know I can contribute or not. Just a few hours after this cycle starts, Uranus is going to move into line 5 called Dharma. That has a developmental theme that says, it's a long one. Holding together does not exclude eventual separation. Successful union after a proper term will encourage separation. The fledgling, once mature, is expected to leave the nest. This is right action, which does not harm the integrity of the union. In the exaltation, it says the teacher. Contribution is part of a process of sharing that accepts and expects limitation, exemplified in teaching. The detriment says the parent that cannot let go of the child, understanding only that its authority is being challenged. Contribution as an end in itself that neither accepts nor expects limitation, exemplified by the parent that cannot let go of the child. So it's the line of the teacher where you can contribute your wisdom and then just let others go do what they want with it, or in the detriment where you don't want to let go of those you contribute to so that you can try and control how they're using your contribution. Again, like the parent who cannot let go of their child and let them spread their own wings. Neptune sitting in gate 25, the individual trait of the spirit of the self, innocence, universal love. We've talked all about that with the sun's position. It's sitting in line 4 called survival. That has a developmental theme that says the nature of true innocence can be maintained regardless of circumstances. The exaltation, in fact, there is only an exaltation for this line. It says the beauty of the rose in the garbage dump, the highest principles, even amongst the greatest decadence, the spiritual warrior, the innocence maintained regardless of circumstances. No polarity, no planet in detriment. It is Neptune though, so Neptune could make it a little bit harder to see this quality playing out. Pluto sitting in gate 41, the collective abstract trait of contraction and decrease in the root center. This is the fuel and pressure to start a new experience. But at this very beginning stage, it's about fantasizing about all the experiences that you'd like to have and eventually pairing it back to the one that you really do want. It's sitting in line 4 called correction. This is another one with a developmental theme. So it's a lifelong learning process. It says successful adaptation to limitation. Now, limitation is just that this is just a fuel here. This is not an awareness center. The feeling doesn't become a potential that could be fulfilled until it gets to the other side, up to that gate 30 in the emotional center. And the fourth line does have this built-in knowing of that and is fixed and really wanting to get to that gate 30. In the exaltation, it says survival of the fittest and its eventual flourishing, the energy for adaptation and a deep feeling for survival. So this is a quality of like, I'm going to stick with this and adapt and find a way to get there, to eventually get that feeling. In the detriment, it says the expenditure of energy on maintaining relationships rather than on correction, going through the adaptation process. So here, the collective nature of the traits taking over, you're inviting others into the experience who want to have the same experience, but then you end up giving up on doing it your way to do it their way, which in the end can lead to some frustration. Okay, so let's look overall at what's going on here. I want to just comment on Mercury as well. Mercury's in retrograde in gate 37, so part of that channel of community. So there could be some rehashing of old stuff there, talking about loyalty and betrayals and belonging or not belonging, what's needed, possessiveness and friendships, and so on. All right. Looking at this combination, I'm really going to key in on the definition here, the things that are consistently and reliably activated. So we've got the 3740, our channel of community, with the 5125, that channel of initiation. That's quite interesting because most of the energy that's moving up through that channel of community, that 3740, actually goes to the 5125 channel of initiation, not the 2145, the tribal channel of money that goes up to the throat center. It's what you might expect. But this is actually all part of the mystical way. It's a different kind of circuitry that exists within human design. So you could witness yourself, or you yourself could break out of the homogenization of the tribe and be initiated into a new path that brings you more deeply into yourself or others into themselves, and a love of one's own body. We could be or notice others in the right place at the right time to bring one's individual uniqueness into the community in a way that shifts it. In either case, we've got our other definition with that channel of maturation from the root up to the sacral center there. So in either case, it could start a new cycle, a new experience for you or the other in the community, respectively. I see also here the pressure to get out of a relationship, a family, a community, and entering into a new experience alone, adapting and taking a leap into something that stretches you or stretches the other in a new way. There's also the potential for being at the wrong place at the wrong time and increased competitiveness in the community that ends up creating fracturing and disharmony. In my world commentary I've been doing, particularly around this war in Iran, we certainly saw in this last cycle of crisis and friction, that friction of other countries indicating, no, they're not going to enter into this crisis when they weren't informed of it in the first place, and where the objective, in any case, seems to keep changing. This is a cycle now where there's potential for an influence to come in and end things, to start a new cycle that's more harmonious. We have Venus sitting in that 42nd gate of growth and completion. But there could also be that ego competitiveness that could try to hold on, especially with that gate 53 detriment of not wanting to start something new because of the past criticism. And Uranus in gate 8, it's not part of the definition, but that parent that won't let go, right? Not wanting to let go. Perhaps, though, when the sun gets into gate 25, that gate of innocence, and also moves into line 4, which happens on the 21st to meet Neptune in that line, Maybe we'll have that positive aspect of the spiritual warrior with the highest principles really show up there. I'm hoping. All right. Well, remember that the transit field brings the traits that have the potential to homogenize us to their conditioning. And so it's what we see play out in the world where most people are not self rather than living their unique designs. With awareness, though, you can observe and learn from these frequencies rather than having them puppet you. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. And if you're new to human design and just want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the black and the red about, the different geometric shapes, a bit of background on the system, you can grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margogfraser.com/human design. All right. If you enjoyed the podcast, I'm always so grateful if you can give it a like and consider subscribing if it's correct for you. Keep those surfboards out to ride these emotional waves of the channel of community, but it should be a little smoother now that the earth is out of the emotional gates. Be open to letting this cycle support you and coming into a deeper love and acceptance of your body vessel, and connecting with universal love. With the pressure of initiation and cycles, just make sure that you're checking in with your own strategy and authority before taking that leap and starting something new. But if it is correct for you, well, you're going to have the support of the transit field there. All right. Have a great cycle. Be kind to one another. And may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.